Welcome to the Responsible Marketing Podcast, conversations about marketing, sustainability, and how we can all help in becoming more responsible organisations. I'm Jo, a marketing strategist and consultant with a career spanning corporate, small medium business and self-employment, incorporating marketing and commercial in various guises, and now flying the flag for a more sustainable and kinder future. In this episode, I'm joined by Owen Weightman from 3D Virtual Spaces, providing 3D and 360 representations of commercial spaces. We talk all about how his offer can provide opportunities for accessibility and ensuring a venue provides for all. Let's dive straight in. Hi everyone and welcome to today's podcast. I'm here with Owen. Hi.
Hi Jo.
How are you doing?
I'm very good, thank you. How are you?
Good, I'm very good, thank you. Thank you for joining me today.
It's a pleasure.
Good, well that's a relief.
Yeah.
So, Owen, obviously you're a local business based in the Northeast.
I am.
Would you like to just introduce your business to those who are listening and watching and just tell us a bit about what you do and also who you work with, things like that?
So, yeah, I have a company called 3D Virtual Spaces, which is just me. I vowed, I used to have a real job and I vowed after leaving that real job that I would never work for anybody or have anybody working for me, which makes life really simple and straightforward. And what I do is create 3D digital versions of buildings which are interactive, so it allows people to look around the buildings online and interact and learn about them.
Okay.
I'm mainly based in the northeast of England, and I have some pretty nice clients at the moment. So, for example, I've been in Durham Cathedral this week. I was in the Oriental Museum this morning. I was at Bowes Museum a couple of weeks ago. I've been to the Rising at Raby Castle. So they're really nice clients to have. It's a really nice environment for me to work in. And it's kind of a privilege, really, because what I'm doing is walking around these places and enjoying myself and doing a bit of scanning at the same time.
Well, you've got to enjoy yourself, haven't you?
Yeah.
That's what it's about, isn't it?
Yeah.
So how did you get started in this?
I got started because the job that I used to do was like a high level kind of, it was a director's job in a service organisation. And it got to the point where I was travelling too much, I was overworked, I didn't really have that work-life balance. So what I decided to do was to pack it in. I was at a point in life where I could emotionally and financially finish working for them.
Yeah.
So I did, and I didn't know what I was going to do. So what I decided was that I would have a kind of portfolio career. So I was looking around thinking I'll do a bit of project management, or I'll do this, I'll do that. And I saw this technology that creates these 3D models. And I thought that's kind of got some legs in the Northeast because it's not really heard of. You know, you go to London and you see a lot of it, you go to Manchester, you see some of it, but by the time you get up to kind of Durham and Newcastle, you don't see much of it.
Okay.
And I was talking to a friend of mine called Martin Wilson, if he's looking,
Hello, Martin.
who has an inclusive dance group. And he's had it for 25 years, it's very well established, and a lot of his dancers are autistic. Okay. And I was showing him these 3D visuals that I've created, or that could be created, and he said that would be really useful for my autistic dancers to see a dance venue ahead of time, or to see a hotel ahead of time when they're travelling.
Okay, yeah.
So that they're familiarised and therefore less anxious when they actually arrive physically at that location. So during my notice period of my last job, I bought the gear, he got some funding, and we did some tests, and it kind of rolled on from there. So it's not all totally familiarization stuff, it's also accessibility. So obviously in these models as well I can include accessible information. So for example, you can see where the steps, you can measure doorways, you can indicate where the accessible elevators are, you can see where there's a load counter, all that kind of stuff. So it's very nice. It's also a familiarization tool, and it's also potentially an inclusion tool. So when I was working in Durham Cathedral, for example, Durham Cathedral has one end which has steps down and then steps up again. Okay. They can't put ramps in, they can't put lifts in, because it's all protected and the way that everything's formed. So they want a tool to be able to show people virtually what it's like in that area. Okay,
so they can still experience it without actually being able to maybe access that for those reasons.
And on the same note, you could have a guy sitting in a hospital bed in Australia who couldn't ever afford to come to, or couldn't physically or financially afford to come to Durham Cathedral, and he can still have that virtual experience.
Yeah, that's amazing, isn't it? And do they ever use it for kind of like events that are happening there as well, maybe, or anything, or they just show that through their channel anyway?
They don't use it at the moment because I'm still working on that one.
Ah, okay, that'll be that then.
But there are a lot of other applications. So the obvious application when you think about it is selling houses.
Yeah.
You know, you see it a lot when you're selling houses. But then you think, well, that could go into student flats, for example. So there's a lot of student landlords in Durham that I work with, and they can therefore show their properties to Chinese students.
That's
very easily.
Isn't it? Yeah.
And if you're a Chinese student and you can see where you're going to go, or you can't see where you're going to go, then probably you choose the one that you're going to see.
Yeah, definitely.
Again,
unless you come over to the UK and do like a little trip beforehand, which is unlikely, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's really fascinating. Yeah, because some of the buildings I know some of the buildings you worked on, or you are working on, and they are amazing buildings inside, but like you just said, the accessibility maybe isn't there because the doorways aren't wide enough perhaps for wheelchairs or whatever, but also the steps, for those who are challenged with steps. So it's a really fascinating, for me, I think it's a really fascinating way for, like you say, to demonstrate the incredible, beautiful architecture we still have in the UK, especially in the Northeast, to anybody who wants to look at. It's now not kind of like there's no stop sign for anybody, there's no actual barrier to them. They can access it virtually. Yeah. Okay, cool.
Yeah, and I think from there, it goes into other areas. So, for example, I work with CPI.
Okay.
And I create digital versions of their production areas so that when they get visitors or they have potential clients, they can virtually show them around the clean rooms and the production areas so that it doesn't interfere with the production that's going on. It's a very safe environment, and they can still have that measuring possibility if they decide they want to slot a machine in somewhere, they can digitally measure it rather than going into the production area. So there's a lot of applications in that respect as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess also maybe if they're, I'm going to be a bit cheeky because I think I know you've done it already, but a building, for example, where there's some clear history behind it, an architect behind it, but perhaps it's one that can't be maintained for whatever reason, needs to be destroyed, sadly, for something else. So I think you did that quite recently with something, didn't you?
I did. I did it was the Cloth Workers Hall in London, and that was a fantastic building, and it's got a lot of heritage and history behind it, and they're going to knock it down and build a new building with a big skyscraper on the original site, but they wanted to maintain the memory of it because it's got a lot of historical aspects built in.
I mean, hopefully, nowadays you would think and hope that people would actually reuse the buildings, wouldn't you, and work that out. But clearly for this one, it's not possible. So at least they'll have, a scope for looking back at what the building was like and educating people on what was there before. So
it's not as limited as that actually, because I also work in Bowes Museum and create and Bishop Auckland Town Hall, coincidentally, and create digital versions of some of their exhibitions, which means that they keep that exhibition as a virtual exhibition even when it's gone. So they still have that possibility to look back on it, understand where all of the exhibits were, show people, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, okay. They could almost bring that to life on maybe a smaller scale. So they did, when the Swan was being repaired in the Bowes Museum, they did like those little mini films. So maybe it's something they could bring back, if it's popular or whatever, and re-show the event that was there and the pop-up or whatever.
Yeah, so I can include videos as well. So when you virtually look around, you can click on things and play videos. So if they wanted, they could have the full video of the Swan being repaired, the story of the Swan being repaired, playing inside the virtual version.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
That's made my brain go a bit funny. I don't know if I can work out how you do that. Very good. Okay. And you mentioned before, obviously, about making that career change to work just for yourself.
Yeah.
So how do you find that?
Great.
Yes. I know, it's great, isn't it?
Yeah, it's such a nice step.
Yeah.
Especially because I've stepped out of I'm going to say a hostile environment. It wasn't a hostile environment, but it was a very pressurised environment into what is working with lovely people like you, Jo. And all the clients. It's all very arty. The things that I'm doing now.
Yeah, very creative.
And it's very, very gentle and very soft and very relaxing, really.
Yeah, so. Amazing change of life, really. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I do find sometimes, and I speak to a lot of business owners that either work for themselves or have small businesses, and often, I mean, it's still hard work. You still have to do the pipeline. You have to do pretty much everything yourself, unless you kind of outsource it, whatever. And even then, you're keeping track of that as well. So there are kind of complications that come with that, but I don't think I'd ever want to work for anyone else again. I shouldn't say that out loud, should I? No, But my clients are lovely and I love them, and I'd rather have them as clients than being employed. So. And
you take the whole pie rather than the slice of the pie.
Yeah, it's true, isn't it?
Which is in my mind. I think with you as well. My overheads are very, very. Don't tell my clients, but my overheads are very, very small, purely because I'm working from home. you know.
Yeah.
All I'm paying for.
But then that makes you more accessible to lots more businesses as well.
Yeah.
So it means that, you know, like you said, I don't have agency fees or I don't have overheads like that. I don't have a big office or anything else. So it means I can make my fees reasonable to access as many businesses as possible, which is what I want to do. So yeah, absolutely. So we talked about inclusivity and accessibility, or you mentioned that before. So is that a value, do you think, that's been ingrained within your business when you started, but also within yourself for much longer than that? Do you think that's always been a thing for you?
I don't think it has. And I'm you know, you never know the whole story, and I'm like kind of learning as I go through. But what I try to do is, so when I left my last job, I set 3 priorities, right? And that was healthier, happier, and helpfuler.
Okay,
right?
helpfuler.
Helpfuler, more
new
helpful,
word.
more helpful. But that didn't sound as good. Healthier, last job, no time to exercise, you know, drinking and eating too much and all that kind of stuff. Really unhealthy lifestyle. So healthier, happier. I don't have to get up at 3 o'clock and go to the airport on a Monday morning, you know, and therefore I'm not grouchy on a Sunday night anymore, and you know.
Have that kind of Sunday night blues
thing.
Yeah,
I just live a really, well, my wife might disagree, but I live a relatively happy life now compared to what I did before. And the helpfuler is where the inclusion and accessibility stuff comes in.
Okay.
Because I think I'm giving something back to society to a certain extent. You know, I'm doing something that's to me very valuable.
Yeah.
And when I sat down and thought about it, when I first started doing the work, and I thought, yeah, that's something that ticks that box at least. So what I've done since then is tried to talk to as many people as possible who are very close to accessibility and inclusion. So it could be experts in the field, it could be disabled people, it could be, you know, any of that. But I just try to gather information and try to make the tools that I'm providing at the moment as useful as possible.
Yeah, it's amazing.
There was a really good example. There's a lady called Kate Stanforth, and she's a dancer in a wheelchair.
Okay.
And she's a blogger and she does a lot of stuff. I don't know whether she'll be watching this, but she might. You never know.
Say hello as well.
Hello, Kate. And I met her at an event about disability, and afterwards I sat down with her for 20-30 minutes and showed her what I was doing, and she gave me and I'm starting at the front door of the event venue, and working my way through and showing her the tags that are in there, and she said, yeah, that's good, you don't need that, give me some feedback. And at the end she kind of said the main thing that you're missing is the journey from the car to the venue itself.
Okay. Yeah.
So you need to understand where the steps are. You need to understand what the ground is, what the surface is.
Absolutely.
And so that's something that I incorporated now. I take a video. I do some other stuff as well, but I take a video with annotations to show what the route is from the car park, from the accessible spaces into the venue itself.
Yeah, that's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's just a tiny little thing, but it's so important.
Well,
you know?
yeah, clearly. Yeah. And unless you're in that situation where you need that information, like you wouldn't have known. So that's brilliant feedback that you've had as well. Yeah. And I guess that ticks a massive emotional box for you then, actually.
Yeah,
so you're a nice guy. You know, we all know Owen's a nice guy. But you are a nice guy. But you know, I think we're all. It doesn't matter who you are, certainly when you run your own business or work for a much smaller business, you tend to have an emotional attachment, I think. Yeah. And so, for example, when I started my business, I was wanting to reach as many tiny businesses as possible because I knew they wanted marketing support. But actually, you know, their situation with regards to cash flow and things like that is really erratic.
Yeah.
So for me to tick that box now, I tend to deliver workshops to a bigger group, but there might be micro businesses because it makes it more accessible to them. They can't necessarily afford my fees as a one-off solo business, but as a group, you know, it's much more accessible for them. But yeah, that does tick my box.
And I think it's incredible at the minute. Since we left Europe, I mean, obviously there was the IDF funding when we left Europe.
Careful, we're not getting political on here.
But no, we're not. But now it's replaced. The funding's coming through, especially to the northeast, and people can start to pay you to provide this information to other micro businesses, which is really nice.
Yeah,
I can get funding towards my stuff.
Yeah.
And you know, the people get directly.
Yeah, it was such a relief when that started coming through again, because I think the northeast was probably more complex, wasn't it, because of all the LEP and the 4 different areas and everything else. But that seems to be sorted now. So yeah, we are getting the funding through, which is great. And I think you're right. It just makes things much more accessible. I think also people got used to having that accessibility through funding as well. Yeah. So for it to be taken away and not have it for it's certainly 18 months, wasn't it? If not even nearly 2 years. Yeah. Then that makes a massive impact. And I saw that in my business as well. I saw the impact where people were a bit like, a bit more careful.
And I think that's where people need to educate themselves with small companies. I was talking to somebody yesterday. We were at the DBN dog walk yesterday, and she wasn't aware that there was funding available for, you know, help and advice and that kind of stuff. You know, there's RTC North, there's UMI, there's all sorts of businesses who can give you that training and sit down and help you with the business plan, or sit down and you know, show you which direction your company should be going in.
Yeah, or digital health checks, all that kind of stuff. It's amazing what they're offering actually. You know, it's a great one to tap into, and I definitely, so if you're interested in funding, have a look at North East Funding, because there's lots about actually now, which is good.
Yeah.
Okay, so you mentioned obviously about, I guess, the inclusivity being a fairly new value to you now, but it was the helpfuler part that actually ingrained that in you. So do you think it's important then for other businesses, like businesses just generally in the North East, to be either inclusive or more diverse or more helpfuler, whatever that might be? Do you think that's important for a business?
I think it's incredibly important, but I'm saying that from a selfish perspective, because I want all businesses to be inclusive so I can work with them.
Yes, it's true, yeah.
But on the serious side, I think that there will be some kind of government regulations coming in the future that means you have to have some kind of accessibility aid on this level. Because when you look to see what's out there at the minute is basically sheets of paper or sheets on their website, just explaining things, you know, not even often with pictures.
Okay.
You know, and
I see what you mean. Yeah, from that point of view.
So they'll show you where the entrance is, and they'll show you what the desk looks like and stuff like that. But I think that the familiarization side of things really needs to be dealt with, because you see so many people are being diagnosed with ADHD and autism and stuff like that these days.
It's much more recognised, isn't it?
Yeah, it's becoming a big thing, and I think there'll be some government thing coming in at some point to
but I think
try
it's
to push
also
it
maybe
through.
businesses have to understand what that means. So if they are employing people, or their employees discover that they've got, you know, a challenge with ADHD or whatever, then, you know, it's them understanding how they can help that person to become, or either stay productive or more productive, or make their environment more comfortable, whatever that is. And that definitely ties in, certainly from my point of view, when I talk about sustainable marketing or sustainability, looking at the ESG pillars. So looking at environment, obviously, but social impact. So whether that's employees, whether that's your community around you, whatever, and obviously the governance side as well. But the social impact for that, you know, does have to circle around the employees as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
So to have that opportunity for, and also I think maybe people coming for interview, they might want to come and see where they're coming. So I think it's something that I could definitely, push into businesses as well, like really open their eyes to the fact that actually for their employee side or visitors to the site or whatever else, that's actually a really great way for them to familiarise themselves. And like you say, if there are businesses where there are areas that are protected, like those clean rooms, did you call them?
Yeah.
Yeah, so maybe you don't want people in there if it's particularly like it has to be sanitised all the time or whatever, then it's a great way of still demonstrating your capabilities, but without actually having to, you know, sort all that out, wash down, whatever that might be. Great.
Yeah, and I think as well, there are other companies out there who are doing some very creative things. So I see in the North East, because the projects that I'm working on is funded by the government, and they've also put some funding into a company called Welcome Me. And Welcome Me is a guy who created a company in Scotland that is you can join as a company, or you can join as an individual. The individuals create a profile of their disabilities. So it could be that they're in a wheelchair, it could be that they have, you know, autism, it could be that they only have one eye, whatever it is. And when they want to visit a venue, if that venue is also registered, they send their profile to that company, and that company prepares how they are met. So they say, I'm going to be arriving at 3 o'clock on Friday afternoon. So by 3 o'clock on Friday afternoon, they have a ramp in place, or they have some special support, or they have a sensory kit or something like that helps them get around the building.
And that's a live thing now, is it?
Yeah, and that's just a simple idea created by a guy in Scotland, and now he's working with, I think it's Currys and, you know, some big organisations.
I mean, I was talking to someone on a different podcast about like supermarkets and welcomers and things like that, to kind of create a more relaxed environment, certainly for maybe older generations or those who are challenged by going to the supermarket and not wanting to be in that space. So that's exactly that kind of thing, again, isn't it? It's just, I suppose, people just being prepared for what they're going to go and do.
Yeah.
And also those venues being prepared to welcome those people as well, because
the other side of that is that if the venues themselves aren't sure about how to contend with a particular disability, they can get training from Welcome.
Absolutely,
you know,
that's amazing.
It works in all different directions.
Incredible. And what's that called again?
It's Welcome, but with the capital M.
Okay.
So Welcome Me.
Welcome Me. Okay, so if anyone's interested, have a look at that
as
well.
Look it up.
Fantastic. So do you find then that, I know obviously you're centred a bit like I am in the North East generally, but do you find that businesses are open, or organisations I should say, are open to looking more at inclusivity and diversity and welcoming kind of like what you offer? Do you find that like an easy sell? I don't want to say sell, but you know, an easy introduction into places, or do you find that there's still some barriers maybe and people aren't realising the opportunity there?
I think the barrier is cost. The barrier is always cost.
Okay,
and
yeah.
people, forward-thinking company who believe in it are prepared to pay for it.
Yeah.
But quite often, maybe they don't see the value, maybe they don't believe in it, but then, you know, it's quite often I'll go through and everybody's really impressed and they love the idea till it comes to signing the cheque.
Okay.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
But there's organisations, I'm working with the National Trust, for example, they believe in it, they're starting to kind of gain momentum. So that's really nice.
Yeah, so it's those companies really that reflect your values, I guess, as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's the same organisations.
In National Trust, they have 3 different levels of inclusivity, I suppose, and accessibility, and the gold one it requires something like that I do. It doesn't have to be mine, but it requires a familiarisation tool, for example.
Yeah, okay. And that's their gold level.
That's their gold level, yeah.
Right.
So if they want to achieve that, they need to do something more advanced.
Is that something they've set themselves in those 3 different levels?
I presume so, yeah.
That's amazing. So yeah, they really are forward thinking.
Yeah.
So do you find that's becoming a bit more common within the Northeast, that people are thinking about these types? They are starting to be.
I think everybody is. I was at the Oriental Museum this morning, and the lady that I was talking to was like, well, we're trying to decide what we're going to do because we're looking at sensory kits for, you know, and all this kind of stuff. And I said, well, this is what you need, because this includes all of that. You know, you get all of the information in one little kind of digital model, if you like.
Yeah.
You know, it's so and she was quite, I wouldn't say she was blown away, but she was quite overwhelmed by the sort of stuff that she's going to get. It's funded for her, so she's not paying for anything.
Yeah, amazing.
And she's going to get it, and it's going to be a really useful tool.
I think people just maybe they're not even realising that that's available. So even though they want to, perhaps, I don't know, it might be even a pub, for example, thinking, we definitely want to make things more accessible for people, but we're not really sure what to do. They maybe don't even realise that your services are out there. Do you know what I mean?
Possibly.
Which kind of brings me on to, what kind of marketing do you do? Because clearly I'm going to talk about marketing because obviously I'm a marketer. So what kind of marketing do you use to then promote the business and explain to people actually what the advantage of the service is?
Yeah. When I started the business, I didn't have a clue. I didn't have a clue about business at all. I still probably don't, to be honest, which is fair enough.
Always learning, aren't we?
I've always done it to the best of my ability, but by myself. I've never really employed anybody to do anything. I've never paid anybody to do anything. So accountants I pay, but I give them all the information on an Excel sheet. You know, it's that kind of thing. It's all rough and ready. And I think when I first started, I did a very sensible thing as far as I'm concerned, and I went to the RTCs and the UMIs and the Digital Drive Durhams and got advice from them about what I should be doing, how I should be doing it, you know, whether I had the right equipment, all that kind of stuff. And from there, I kind of started networking. I find that networking allows me to talk about my company and my passion for my company, rather than paying for somebody else to do that on my behalf. You know, and you could probably do it 10 times better than me and get time to as much business as me, but I'll keep my own money, thanks.
I can't believe you won't pay me any money. It's outrageous.
I can't believe you won't do it for free.
I can do it for funded though.
All right.
There's funding available. No, I know you are quite a prolific networker and you're excellent at networking. And
I think it's I get satisfaction and enjoyment out of networking.
Yeah,
I don't get paid for it, but I get business through it.
Yeah, you do. But it's a slow burn, isn't it? But I also think there's a case for, again, the service that you bring, that people need to understand kind of like what it is and then what it delivers and then how it fits into their business. And by all those points of contact, you can do that quite succinct. Oh, I can't say that. Succinctly. You can do it really clearly. I'm going to leave that bit in because it's funny. So you can do it really clearly and they can understand exactly, like from the horse's mouth, if you like, exactly what they're going to get and how they can benefit from that, rather than it being, I mean, you've got a website, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's not a very good one.
Oh.
It's the same age as the company, so it doesn't get changed much.
Okay, that's fine. I'll tell you what we'll do. At the end of this, hopefully I'll have time at the end of this podcast and we'll put an example of your work on so people can see what it is like as well. Yeah. So we'll do a little ditty in there so you can see what kind of work that Owen produces and what it can deliver for businesses so people understand that a bit better, because just talking about it again is hard to understand it straight away, isn't it? So, okay. So you obviously try to be, you've just mentioned that you don't really have overheads, you networking.
No, I
you
have
don't.
overheads, just not many.
Well, okay, not many overheads. So I think, especially the work you do, again, because it's got great value to it, you know, you're quite a responsible business. You do pick and choose the networking you go to because you know it's beneficial to you or to others. You're careful about how you work your business, all that kind of stuff. So for me, I think you're quite a responsible business, and also the service you're delivering then therefore passes on to other businesses for them to become more responsible.
Yeah.
So do you think it's important going forward with where we are with the marketplace and business in general and hospitality and all those trends and everything else and economic situation, do you think it's important for people to harness that responsibility and take some responsibility? I'm saying responsibility an awful lot, but taking responsibility for their progress in a sensible way, if you like. So to benefit the kind of the ESG stuff, so benefit the environment, benefit the social impact, benefit the governance
at this time
side of business.
when we're you know having the hottest days, the coldest days, the climate change, all that kind of stuff. Everybody has to take responsibility.
Yeah.
You know, here, even if it's a tiny percentage of the world, we still need to do it, because if we don't do it, nobody else will do it, and
true,
then we're in trouble, aren't we?
And all together, like, we make a bigger voice, don't we?
Yeah.
Clearly I agree with that, and I just think it's really important that people have it on the agenda anyway. But I agree. I think the more people can, and it's sometimes a hard balance between all three. So you can't necessarily, especially as a business, and it depends on what you're doing. If you're manufacturing, for example, you can't necessarily balance the whole environmental, the social, and the governance side all at once. But you can pick parts of each.
But I think, because I was speaking to another podcaster of yours, was Stephen, and I was talking to him about this, and we met. You were involved in the conversation about your ESG stuff, and he was like, I don't know what I can do, apart from getting an electric car, which I don't want to because my car's perfectly fine. His office is very insulated, and he's got all of these positive things.
Yeah.
So he's now did he start to plant trees or something like that?
Yeah. So if you go back to another podcast, if you pick up Stephen Clark from Johnson Clark, then he talks about his progress in his sustainability journey for the business as well. So their head office is in North Yorkshire. And it's an incredible building, but he's very lucky with the landlord he's got, because he's very, very environmentally aware. So there's all sorts of heat pumps in there and solar paneling and all that kind of stuff. But also it's in a beautiful setting as well, but very kind of humble to the setting, so it doesn't stick out. It's not very stark. And so he was struggling because they're a really kind of like slick and efficient business, just generally. So he was giving out sweets to clients as a bit of a sweetener. And he's changed that to bee packs. So that it's like wildflower packs. And so he gives those out. So I think there's always ways to do that. And he is looking at doing trees and hedging and things like that as well as a next step. And I think there's always ways for businesses to see those opportunities. They just don't maybe realise it. But also that businesses are doing so much already. So even if it is having the policies, which I know you said, they might have some forms on there or some literature for people to look at. It's not really visually impactful, but at least they're starting somewhere. And I think that at least that is their starting point. So the small amounts of progress I think are good. The more they can be aware of things like the stuff that you do, the 3D visualizing that you do, then I think that brings more opportunity for them. And again, if they get funding, that's even better, isn't it? So I think.
We've got to move in a different direction in this country. I think we're kind of heading in the wrong direction, and it's got to change a little bit without being political. It's got to change a little bit. People just have to be nicer, more thoughtful.
It's true. It's true though, isn't it? But I think there's also that whole, and my industry is probably the worst because marketing has always been about consumerism and driving that anyway. So there is lessons to be learned from my industry or for my industry as well, where we take a step back and think it's not just about pushing sales all the time. It's about other things. It's adding value. It's bringing, like you say, all those other guidance pieces into it as well, and making ourselves a better proposition for the world. Not, and that might be people outside, whatever it is, but that whole proposition. Yeah, definitely.
Totally agree.
So last question from me. So if there's one thing that an organisation can do to become more responsible, whether that's in their operational side, whether it's in the communications, whether it's marketing, whatever you want to pick, what's the one thing do you think they should be doing?
I didn't read this one.
Oh, you had a brief and everything.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Got me on the spot. I think if I looked at everything, I think the stuff that you're doing with ESG is the most important. I think become more environmental. Yeah. Well, no, because everybody needs to be more environmentally friendly. But the stuff that I'm doing is also important, for their employees, for the public. So I think there are a lot of things that a lot of businesses can do at a very cheap rate.
Yeah.
And maybe you start at the cheap end of the scale and kind of build up from there.
Yeah, I think there's lots of little bits that businesses can do. And again, like I say, they're probably doing things already that they could just communicate about, but very carefully and with guidance, that could start them on the roadmap and then venture into other things. Yeah, but it doesn't have to be a massive investment. Yeah,
exactly. And I think the way that I used to work in maintenance in the past is that you draw a Pareto of the things that you can do, and there's some very cheap quick fixes. Yeah. There's always cheap quick fixes. And then the expensive ones you leave till the time when you can afford the expensive ones, but you tick so many boxes on the way that it's a really easy thing to do.
Yeah, that's good. Fab. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
It's been a pleasure, Jo.
Thanks.
We had a lovely lunch beforehand as well.
Oh, we did. It was really nice. So we'll definitely put a little video. You'll send me that to add to this, and then people can see exactly what you do. And maybe you'll come back on again when you've got some more projects on the
I would love to. Thank you very much, Jo.
It's a pleasure.
Cheers.
Thanks for watching. See you again.
Bye.
You've been listening to the Responsible Marketing Podcast. You can contact me by email at jo@jolonconsulting.com or find me on LinkedIn. All recordings for the podcast can be found on YouTube, as well as where you usually get your podcasts. If you've enjoyed listening, please hit subscribe, which helps the podcast be found by more people. And of course, feel free to share it on your socials. Until next time, thanks for listening.